Hey everyone, welcome back to the Eternal Devlog. This week I started working on one of the more unusual enemy types in the game, something called the Entangled Pair. These enemies are inspired by the idea of quantum entanglement, where two particles become linked so that what happens with one instantly affects the other. So instead of fighting a single enemy, you're fighting two particles that are constantly influencing each other. The idea behind the entangled pair is that the enemies behave like two linked particles orbiting the same energy state. They move independently across the surface, but they're always connected through an invisible relationship. So something like movement, state changes, attacks can propagate between two particles. Sometimes they even swap states, meaning the behavior or energy configuration of the pairs can flip instantly. Visually, I wanted the enemies to feel like unstable particles. So each particle has a small cluster of orbiting elements moving around it. Those orbitals help communicate the current state of the particle. When the pair is calm, they orbit slowly. When the particles are energized, the orbits spin faster and the particles become more aggressive. Later, those orbitals will also be used for attacks and energy interactions. The core mechanic of the entanglement pair is the entanglement swap. At certain moments, the two particles will exchange states. That means their positions swap, their energy state changes, their attack pattern flips. This creates kind of a puzzle during combat. You can't just focus on one enemy because the system constantly redistributes the behavior between the two particles. Eventually, these enemies will interact with the planetary field as well. When the particles move across the surface, they inject energy into the grid system. That means their movement and attacks will actually disturb the battlefield. So instead of enemies just moving on the surface, they actually push energy through the field around them. The entanglement pair is interesting because it's not really two enemies. It's more like one system with two bodies. So the player has to pay attention to both particles at the same time. It also introduced some of the deeper science themes in the game. Many of the enemies in Eternal are inspired by ideas from physics and field theory. The entanglement pair is one of the first enemies that really explores that concept. Next week I'll be expanding the system so the particles interact more with the battlefield and other enemy types. And eventually this will tie into some of the larger resonance and wave mechanics later in the game. Thanks for following the devlog, and I'll see you next week.